Bitcoin just blasted off again to new all-time highs around $118,000. So let's take a look into why this is happening and what is next for Bitcoin. I'm Brett at CryptoGX, and we're going to take a look at Bitcoin because obviously we've got some new all-time highs. Lots of things are going on in the crypto market, so let's just take a look. So here's the Bitcoin price chart. We'll start here first on the daily. Obviously, this is just awesome. Fantastic trajectory right here. Very, very straight up when it comes to the daily, and that's something that we really like to see, especially kind of all of these different times right here, back in November, here in December, here in January, and then when we had the recovery back in April. This is the kind of movement that people really get excited over. We really like to see in Bitcoin, and so it's just great to be seeing that again. As we can see, we'll put some markers here for the times that it's been happening recently. So we've got these various movements, of course, over the past, let's say 7, 8, 9 months, and we're getting a new one. We got to take a look into kind of the mechanics, the overall crypto market, and see what's going on for this next move before we can really, put some sort of trajectory on where we're going next. So if you go on to Binance Square, you can see the most trending topics. Ethereum has broken past 3,000 as well. We'll get into that in a second, but it's a great spot to kind of look at what people are saying about Bitcoin and about these moves. Now, a lot of people are pointing out the kind of 113 area as where it was breaking off from. And if we go back to the chart, you can kind of see that right here is where that resistance area was. And I'll put a nice little line for us here. This was definitely an area of resistance, and it was kind of a range really because, it was bouncing off between about here and here, even with this little area. If I move it right here, this kind of little area where it was going back and forth before it kind of exploded. So really somewhere between 108,000 to 112,000 is that kind of rejection zone, maybe even a little further down here with these kind of rebounds as well. But this has been happening, it's mid-July now, it's been happening since about end of May. So quite some time that we've been moving sideways. So this retest, as we've been seeing, is from in that same area as the November and December highs after the pump, which basically is from the presidential administration changing and all that hype when we knew who the president was going to be. Obviously there was a lot of hype around the administration's policies that they planned to enact being very crypto friendly and things like that. Then there was kind of the tariff zone here where it freaked out the whole market, stock market included. And then as those kind of tapered off, we had a little bit of a flat sideways zone where it was like, okay, we'll see what happens next. And then the market, especially crypto market, rebounded and we've been sideways again. So this past month and a half is basically where Bitcoin and crypto has been deciding, okay, what's going to happen next. Now, in order to find out why this is happening with Bitcoin, it's really important to look at articles and things like that to know what's driving this. And as you can see here, US monetary easing is really what is a big part of this particular movement. Now, what does this monetary easing mean? Well, to start, basically one analyst is saying that it's attributed to Trump's big beautiful bill and certain expectations based on that, as well as other monetary policy things. So let's dive into that. So as you can see from this analyst in this article, US policy developments such as fiscal expansion and expectations of further monetary easing have created a backdrop that is undeniably favorable for Bitcoin. Basically what they're saying is the policies passed in this particular bill are going to push for stimulus as well as money printing in the US. And if we think back to the previous crypto cycle where there was just tons and tons of money printing for COVID stimulus and things like that, that drove a huge money flow into Bitcoin at that time as well. Now, another thing that pushes Bitcoin to new all-time highs time and time again is something called a short squeeze. Now, they go over this here. Data from CoinGlass shows that more than $1.1 billion in short positions were wiped out as the price printed successive records between July 10th and July 11th. So essentially what this means is that there are a ton of people shorting Bitcoin at certain price levels. And this particular level was probably at about $110,000. And essentially what happens is once the price ticks past that, basically wall of shorts, that means that all of those positions are liquidated, meaning that they lost their money, and all of that pressure, all of that volume of these shorts was keeping the Bitcoin price down. And so every time it goes up and hits that wall, all of this volume, all of this sentiment, all the people in the market are thinking, oh, no, it's not going to go past that. So often that helps the sentiment keep the Bitcoin price down. But when one little thing happens and it gets past that huge sell wall or short wall, then it is kind of like the floodgates opening and all of the positive sentiment can flow even further, pushing it to new highs. Now, if we look into kind of more macroeconomic effects and kind of policy things, as I mentioned before, we can see right here the tariff related issues that were happening early on. If we go back to the chart in this era, maybe a little bit here, actually tariffs were more around this kind of January timeline, but the tariff ideas areas was pushing it down. Now that those concerns are kind of out of the way, we can look at some other particular indicators. Two of them at the moment is the July 15th Consumer Price Index and the July 30th FOMC meeting. Essentially, these are big indicators of what's going to happen in the market when it comes to policy. So this particular government said that cooling inflation could warrant a rate cut this month. And if you're familiar, interest rates posed by the Fed often have a huge effect on prices of stocks as well as just general investment into certain assets. So when the rates get cut, there is often an inflow of money into these particular assets, especially riskier assets like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Donald Trump has been absolutely calling for the chair of the Fed, Jerome Powell, to ease up on different financial policies for a long time. And there's expectation of this to change at the moment. And that is kind of another catalyst that's going to be causing the price to increase, especially when it comes to just the speculation of it, but even more so when these policies are actually going into effect. And because of the overall expectation of these policies to be going the way that, would help Bitcoin, that's why basically the rumor is pushing the price up. And as you know, most people know in the investment world, buy the rumor, sell the news. The rumor's out there. Now the price is reflecting that as well. Now, like I said, it is a rumor. As you can see right here, futures markets disagree, assigning only a 7% chance of a cut and 93% likelihood that the Fed keeps the rates unchanged. So it is a little bit uncertain, as it always is with Fed rate cuts and things like that. It's just a matter of what people think. They don't release any sort of inkling whether or not it's going to go one way or another for sure, but there's lots of speculation at the moment. Now, as we see with Bitcoin, every time Bitcoin makes a huge move, it pushes all the other cryptocurrencies up as well. Everything flows the direction generally that Bitcoin does, at least the biggest of the coins out there. So you can see right here, XRP, Ethereum, Cardano, Omni, all these Solana, all these big coins are also seeing gains. Look at XRP, the last 30 days up 20%, last 24 hours up 12%. And all of these in the last 24 hours are green. Now, some are interesting. Omni Network is not one that has been in the trending very often lately. We won't dive into that, but you can see if we go to the Google Trends data for cryptocurrency and we scroll down, we've got a rising one about Omni Crypto. So maybe I'll make a video about that next. Keep an eye out. Make sure to subscribe if you want to hear more about that. Now, another one that is huge right here is why is crypto pumping right here? If we click on that, that is a huge uptick in the interest for what's going on here. And honestly, I'm curious. Let's just type this into Google and see what it says. And I love the Google AI feature. It's fantastic. We've seen a lot of these things. Growing institutional adoption. Absolutely. Lots of financial institutions are jumping on, hedge funds, asset managers. We've got Bitcoin ETFs and other ETFs going into play. ETFs are a huge thing when it comes to the movement of Bitcoin and other assets. So that's going to be big later on for Solana and Ethereum and things like that. The short squeeze, as I mentioned before, is a huge one. It surges crypto dramatically. We've got the rate cuts. We've got inflation concerns, regulatory clarity. That is a big one when it comes to the presidential administration and kind of what they plan to do for Bitcoin. There's also been a big push for putting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies into a class that does not have capital gains taxes. Now, if we look at capital gains tax, that's another big push for Bitcoin. As we can see, that particular bill is pushing for tax relief on Bitcoin. That's just kind of one step in that direction. This was about 5 days ago at the moment that kind of was hinted at and released to the public. But there is also a push for just Bitcoin to be completely tax-free when it comes to any sort of gains. Now, let's do some chart analysis on Bitcoin based on these recent movements that we see here. If we kind of zoom out a little bit, and actually I'm going to zoom in onto the 4 hour, and you can see a little bit more deliberate movements when you come to the 4 hour. I don't like to zoom in too far past that, but you can see literally the last day and a half, it has gone up dramatically. The big push was here Wednesday at about 4 p.m. I'll put a line here for us to mark that. But if we compare these to the previous movements, something kind of like this right here as well, and then we zoom out like this, if we want to just take an overall kind of look at this entire pump, I'll make a mark like this, and let's zoom out a little bit. So now we've got a general trajectory for the price over this time. Obviously, we had a big swing up and a big swing down. You average it out through the high here and the high here. There's lots of room for Bitcoin to grow, but we got to look at a particular timeline. As we've talked about on this channel in many other videos that you should probably take a look at, analyzing Bitcoin cycles, it does have a typical timeline for how long the bull run will last. And obviously this chart is only going to be showing out to, let's say, where is that? October 1st. So we can't look out forever October, but essentially that timeline looks pretty appropriate. I definitely recommend checking out the channel for the videos that we have on the Bitcoin halving and the Bitcoin cycle to know a little bit more about that. But somewhere in between about August and November is kind of the estimate for when we should see or could see the ultimate peak, at least really the final drawback from this particular cycle. So if we plot out, let's say mid-October, that'd be right about here. Our estimated high could be about $136,000. And that's much lower than most estimates when it comes to this particular bull run. Lots of people were calling for $200,000 Bitcoin. Lots of people even said $250,000 Bitcoin. So it's hard to gauge, but this is something that's very common. Last cycle, everybody was calling for $100,000 Bitcoin. We got to about $70,000. So these price predictions are never particularly accurate because, no one can really know, and technical analysis only gets us so far, especially if I was being a lot more technical about it. I'm being very general and quick here, but the best way to kind of estimate this is to look at something called the rainbow price chart. There's a few others, but we'll take a look at the rainbow chart for now. So here's the rainbow chart indicator, and this is a analysis of the price over time with a kind of logarithmic regression and different bands for where the Bitcoin price moves and what you should kind of think the market is thinking at the time. And so these lower bands right here are essentially when to buy, and then the red bands up here are when to sell. Now you can see the different peaks of the different bull runs. We got the first one here in 2011. We got this one here in about 2013. We got this one over here in 2017. And then the odd one here is the 2021 bull run. It didn't quite ever reach the red zone, and the previous cycles went a little bit past it. So again, it's not perfect, but it did get up into the kind of FOMO-ish area here. So it is generally pretty close to accurate. And so this logarithm regression would, in my opinion, be best suited to be a little bit more curved to match these particular last cycles. And so where we're at right now is they call it the accumulate zone. We've seen that many times before in previous cycles, but essentially, as you can see, we're not even close to the kind of big scary FOMO zone at all yet. Now the question is, are we going to get there? We did not get all the way to the top here in the last cycle. So based, in my opinion, we're not going to get there. I think that the Bitcoin price volatility is settling, as you can see across every single cycle. It's getting less and less volatile. The swings are lower and lower. The percentage gain is less and less. So in my opinion, if we're going out to October here, we would have to go drastically. Look how, if this is October and this is going to be the end, it would have to go vertically very fast. And in my opinion, I think we could probably get to somewhere in the middle here of this zone. It's somewhere in where it says hold. And that's, where they're saying 265-ish. That's still a huge jump from where we're at. That's obviously more than double where we're at in 2 months. It has happened, but I would say that's the furthest we could go. This regression chart could probably do with some updating, but we do have lots of potential movement and potential room for Bitcoin to grow. But I urge you to keep an eye on that and some other indicators. One of my most recent videos that you should check out is going to be on the Bitcoin halving cycle and the indicators to take a look at, this being one of them, as well as when more social and app indicators, like when Coinbase gets into the top 10 of all apps. That's a huge indicator on every single cycle, and the price pulled back within weeks or maybe even a week after Coinbase got into the top 10. So check out that video, make sure to subscribe. But I would also love to know what you guys are thinking about this particular price movement. Where do you think it's going? If we look at this chart, we've got a huge jump right here, but we still a lot of things uncertain with the Fed, the interest rates, the market as a whole, other policy changes that could or could not go into effect. So let me know in the comment section what you think, where you think the Bitcoin price is going to go, when you think this particular bull market is going to end, and I'd be really interested to know. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for all things crypto, and I'll put links to Coinbase and crypto.com in the description. You'll get at least $50 of crypto just for signing up with those links, and I'll put a link to MoonShot as well if you want to get some free meme coins by signing up with that. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.